Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day today. My name is Patrick and this is my channel Tabletop Castellan, where I make content about the old world. So the first project I will be working on is 50 Saurus warriors. So this is the army I'm currently working on for the old world. It's roughly about 3,000 points. In the center there, that is 50 Saurus warriors. I've slowly collected these models over the years, even after Warhammer Fantasy has stopped. I started Warhammer Fantasy back in 8th edition, roughly about 2013. My first army was the Lizardmen. My brother showed me this faction after he showed me some of the dwarves that he started collecting, and then I saw that the Lizardmen were basically the lizards riding dinosaurs, and they were some of the coolest aesthetics ever. And I was able to pick up a battalion box set to get them started, and this is where my collection began. So to begin this project, I need to start narrowing down some of the choices that I have. I've decided that I'm not going to steer too far away from the traditional Games Workshop color scheme, as I've always liked the blue. But most importantly, what I want to do is I want to try and add a little more color to make more contrasting pops. I like the fact that you can add certain color elements to the army that tie in nicely with the blue of the lizard. One of the things I love doing whenever I'm working on a project is going through older codexes and army books, because what this allows me to do is allows me to see different versions and perspectives of these armies. Also, reading the lore really gets me excited about painting the models as well. For the Lizardman army, the Saurus warriors are pretty much the line infantry. Now in the old world, you can have them with regular hand weapons or spears. Since I wanted a very large unit, what I decided to do was finish fixing up some of them that were broken over my collection and made them into spears and shields. The reason why is because in old world, having spears you're allowed to fight in an extra rank. So to start with, what I'm doing is I'm taking one of my Saurus warriors and I'm going to be painting him up throughout the video. However, I'm also going to be showing off that I have 3 different ideas for the shields: a red, orange, and green shield. What I would love to do is I would love to paint each one of these in different colors to help with that contrasting pop. So to get started, these models are pretty old. Some of them have been in my collection since I originally started. So what I'm going to be doing is going back over, and some of them have been primed either white or black. I tend to use rattle can primer because I just find that's easiest to do it, and it doesn't put on a thick coat as long as you're careful and know what to do. So what I'm going to be doing is going back over them with Citadel Altdorf Guard Blue to really deepen the color on some of my miniatures. And then what I'll be doing too is I will be using Citadel Calgar Blue going over underneath them in order to kind of brighten up the model a little bit. Next I'll be using Citadel Abaddon Black on the spears, because in the lore, the Lizardmen, like the Saurus warriors, actually use obsidian weaponry, and I wanted to give it that more black feel. I'm going to be going back over that and giving them a much more stronger coat as well. Next, I'm going to be using Army Painter Leather Brown on the back of the shields. And for the red shield, I'm going to be painting it back over with Army Painter Dragon Red. Then going over each of the spears, the wooden shaft of the spear, I'm going to be painting with Citadel Rhinox Hide for the base layers. Now, unfortunately, I could not find the video clip. However, I did paint the spears and the shield bits with Army Painter Weapon Bronze. And in this part of the clip, what I'm going to be doing is also there's these pieces that extend out from the back spines of the Lizardmen, and there's like these tips on the tail. These are armor sections, and what I do is I also paint them that same weapon bronze. Now for the Lizardmen's claws, I use Citadel Screaming Skull to paint the claws on the Lizardmen. Once they dry, what I'm going to be using is Army Painter Dark Tone Wash to go back over the claws. What I'll be doing here is I'm going to be trying to add a little bit of definition by using a wash on the different claws, so that way they kind of jump out a little bit. I'm also going to be putting it on its back to also redefine its scales as well. For the teeth of the Saurus warriors, what I will be doing is using the same technique that I used previously. Citadel Screaming Skull for the teeth, and then going over with Army Painter Dark Tone Wash to put more definition and contrast in the mouth. And for the eyes, I'll be using a very fine point brush and going back over again with Army Painter Dragon Red. Then once the wash is dry from the claws, what I tried to do was I tried to go back over with the Screaming Skull to add a sharper layer for each of the claws. Finishing up the staff, what I'll be using is Vallejo's Mahogany Brown and adding a layer all the way up the shaft of the spear. And that's pretty much done for Saurus Warrior. So next what I'll be doing is working on the musician. So the same steps for the Saurus Warrior, I'll be doing the exact same thing essentially with the musician in order to tidy him up. Now that that's finished, what I'll start doing is I'll start working on his instruments. So again, going back over with Citadel Rhinox Hide, I take a layer and go over his drumstick. And on the drum itself, I'll go over where I think the wood colors would be. Once that's done, I'm going to use Vallejo's Mahogany Brown, going back over and kind of defining it again, giving it more of hopefully a wooden texture. And then the same thing with the drums. What I'll do is on those wooden parts, going back over with the Mahogany Brown. Once those are dry, what I'll do is go over the details on the drum as well as the drumstick with the Army Painter Weapon Bronze, keeping in theme with the rest of the Saurus Warriors. Next, what I'll be doing is covering the drum skin itself. I'll be taking a little bit of Citadel Screaming Skull, and I'm trying to just lightly cover the lid of the drum. I'm not trying to apply too thick of a coat here because I'm trying something to make it look more like stretched leather. Then I took a lighter tone of Army Painter Leather Brown and tried applying that over the thinned out layer of Screaming Skull. It has a thinner leather texture, which is what I was trying to aim for. I feel like it came out alright. So finally done with the musician, I head now over to the standard bearer. Same thing, what I'll do is I will simply go back over him with the same techniques that I've been doing previously in the Saurus Warriors. Now, time for a banner. So first what I'm doing here is actually coating the banner itself. So what I decided to do was copy the same thing that was in the army book for the Lizardmen. So using my Army Painter Dragon Red, I start going over the whole model. After this, I then start touching up on the details with the Weapon Bronze, keeping in again with the theme of the Lizardmen. Now that I got that going, I decided that just like with the rest of the wood sections, I'm going to go over with the Rhinox Hide from Citadel, and then again, the Vallejo Mahogany Brown. Now to the best part of the banner. What I wanted was vibrant colors for the feathers on the top. So starting with Citadel Moot Green. Next I will be using Citadel Phalanx Yellow for the next feather. And the last feather I decided to use Citadel's Troll Slayer Orange. Now that I have all the feathers completed, what I decided to do was go back over them with Army Painter Dark Tone Wash in order to make them pop a little bit more, especially defining each of the pieces of the feather. Now lastly for the basing. What I decided to do was try a new technique that I haven't done before, was use wall plaster as a basing compound and then texture it with other basing pieces, such as ballast. So what I do is I take one of my sculpting tools, dig it into there, and start stirring up the compound in order to activate it. Take the flat end of it, and what I'll start doing is gently applying it onto here. As I'm working, I try to be careful not to touch the model too much, trying to really work on the base there. And next, once I have a good layer down, I'll take some basalt sand that I have, fine, and start sprinkling on top of there and then press it down a little bit. so that way it gives it a little bit of a rocky texture. After it completely dries and sets, I think it doesn't look too bad. Next, what I'll do is I'll take Citadel Rhinox hide and I'll start painting over this. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually thin out the paint a little bit so that way it covers more. So once that completely dries, I like it. It's not entirely what I wished for though. The truth is, sometimes if the model's base gets pressed a little bit, points of white will actually start to appear. I would like to figure out how to fix this, but for right now, for this batch of Lizardmen, what I would like to do is go ahead and finish them up because I'm going to be putting stuff over them anyway. So pieces that are really starting to show, I'll take some flock and then sprinkle it on the base. Once I shake off the excess and drop the model, then everything should be ready and I can start decorating with even more stuff. After cleaning my workstation and then let it dry a little bit, once everything dries, what I'll do is I'll apply super glue and then take a piece of tuft that I have purchased from the Army Painter range and then glue it down to there. I know that it has some sticky adhesive already to the bottom, but I like to secure it even a little bit more. Press, firmly hold, make sure that it's applied, and done. But that's not everything. So I've always wanted to try to make more of a jungle base for my Lizardmen. I went out and picked up this greenery from the hobby stores. I have 3 different ones, kind of like a fern looking thing. These, which come along with a grass mat, I have no idea what they're called. And then these jungle leaves looking that kind of drape down a little bit and hang. Now, after playing around with all 3 of them, I found out that these draped leaves that look like laurels a little bit are actually the best ones to use, because the other 2 actually have a wax that makes it harder for superglue to stick down to them. It's not impossible, but it's much harder. So what I'll do is I'll trim off the tops of one of these and I'll cut down the stem a little bit, apply superglue, and then stick it to the model. And there you go. It looks like a small plant to increase the jungle aspect of it. So now not only is there grass tough, I was able to get the other 2 to work a little bit, but I didn't like the results that they came with as much as I did with the hanging down leaves. I'll still keep these in my army, but I'm glad that the others I worked better and I used them more. Now for the final thing, a movement tray. Anyone who plays Warhammer Fantasy or large-scale rank and flank games knows that if you're going to be playing with individual models, a movement tray is key. So what I do is I have these sheet of plastic card here, and I'm going to be using 2mm thick plane in order to make the base of it. I find that 1mm just has just enough bend that I don't like moving models around on it. I prefer what's a much more solid 2mm. After taking out of the package, I have my whole sheet there, and what I'm doing is start measuring it. The easiest way to do this is simple. I'd take 10 of my Lizardmen, because I would like to have it in 10 by 5, measure it out, and I try to get about 3 to 4mm gap on each side. This will allow me to place down barriers around my movement tray in order to keep the model securely in place. After I get done with my measuring, I then start cutting the plastic card. I'm going back over here and trying my best to cut through it, slowly and kind of cutting one little bit at a time. Once I get all the way through, I simply just start bending it back in order to break it through all the way. And then once I do that, I'll start going through the other direction. Sometimes this takes several passes in order to make sure I'm cutting through all the way through the plastic card just enough where I can break it and snap it. Alright, now it's down to size. After that, what I'll do is I'm going to be taking the leftover pieces, and the leftover pieces are perfect size for me to be able to cut only a couple millimeters wide in order to create the barriers around the movement tray so that way my models can fit cleanly inside the tray. I measure out a couple of millimeters, and then I use a pen to create my marks, measure it out, and start cutting. In the same way, it's going to take me several passes in order to get the proper depth cut through. Once I get a piece cut off, what I'm doing is I'm shaving off a little bit of the excess in order to make sure that it doesn't have any sharp corners or sticking out protrusions. And what I do is I line it up, make sure it is completely the same length as the movement tray, the base of the movement tray, cut off the excess, and then I will super glue down the edging. I do this until I have all 4 sides of my movement tray completely done. Once they're all completely glued, I have a movement tray for 50 Saurus warriors, or I can actually use this with other models if those models are 25mm by 25mm bases. I can put 50 of them in here in 10 by 5. But one more thing I need to do, I need to go give it a fresh coat of paint. I'll take it outside, give it a quick spray, and it is all done. And I use a paint primer mixture rattle can in order to accomplish this. So, after that's all the way, I present to you my 50 Saurus warriors completely finished. So this took a lot of work and a lot more time than I figured, mostly because it is a lot of models individually. But I am very glad, and these models turned out exactly how I want them to. Now, a lot of people probably are going to be saying, well, the paint jobs on my miniatures probably aren't that detailed. The truth is, I really don't want too much detail on my miniatures, mostly because I like to play by the 3-foot rule, where if they look great on the table 3 foot away, then they're good enough. I'm not really a great painter, nor am I going to be entering into painting competitions, but I do want a fully painted army so that way I can get it on the table, and that way look amazing. So thank you so much for watching my video. I have plenty more lizardmen to paint up, and I will be posting those videos as soon as possible. So thank you all until next time. I hope you all have a wonderful day.